casa arriba, mijo. A la casa, chamito, mijo, así mero. Pégale de su madre.
Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho, is a Mexican drug trafficker and the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. His reputation is as fearsome as it is cunning within the world of Mexican drug lords. What truly makes his profile fascinating is a skill any criminal leader would desire: the ability to evade capture. Born in Michoacán, Mexico, on July 17, 1966, El Mencho has proven to be the most elusive criminal in the history of drug trafficking in Mexico. Although there are no official records confirming his birth date, his mysterious persona has persisted over the years. From an early age, he demonstrated criminal abilities and an unbridled ambition to rise to power. He joined small criminal organizations and, in his early illicit activities, was responsible for illegally entering the United States using forged documentation. His goal was to expand his organization's drug trade network. The United States government offers a $10 million reward for any information leading to his arrest and conviction. El Mencho is wanted for drug trafficking, involvement in organized crime, and illegal possession of firearms. According to intelligence reports, he has been responsible for escalating violence against military personnel and police in various Mexican cities since 2014, and it is believed that he traffics drugs across the Americas, Asia, Europe, and Africa. Later, in the second half of the 1980s, he was already established in San Francisco and became more involved in heavy drug trafficking, distributing, and smuggling methamphetamines. During those years, he was arrested several times on American soil, even being deprived of his freedom during one of his jail releases. El Mencho returned to Mexico and took one of the most incredible turns in his criminal career. However, this time, he didn't try to join a cartel. Quite the opposite. He enlisted in the Mexican Army's Special Forces. Yes, although it may sound unbelievable, this criminal trained as a soldier, learning to use weapons and acquiring knowledge of military strategies and tactics. On one hand, some say that Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes felt remorse and wanted to leave behind his criminal life to join the security forces as a form of redemption. On the other hand, there are those who believe that, knowing what lay ahead in El Mencho's life, it was all a well-thought-out strategy to gain knowledge and tools that would eventually propel him to the top in his quest for power. Precisely because of his military knowledge, he was hired by the Milenio cartel to serve as a bodyguard for its leaders, protecting them from attacks and assassination attempts. However, El Mencho's widely recognized ambition far exceeded these simple tasks. That millennial organization was merely a branch under the command of the Sinaloa cartel, and if there was one thing Nemesio Oseguera disliked, it was having his group subjected to the power of another cartel. When the leader of the Millenarios was captured, a power vacuum was created that El Mencho had planned to fill. However, the Sinaloa cartel pushed him aside and appointed one of their own to take the leadership. This was a terrible blow to El Mencho's greed, who would not stand idly by in the face of the insulting attitude of the Sinaloa capos. It was the year 2010 when the infighting within the cartel for leadership began. On one side were the Sinaloa faction, and on the other, El Mencho and his loyal followers, Oseguera's people, who called themselves Los Matazetas. They moved quickly and managed to kill all their detractors, creating internal complications for the power system that sustained the Sinaloa cartel. Finally, El Mencho's violence paid off, allowing his group to win the war and consolidate its power in western Mexico. Thus was born the fearsome Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, better known by its acronym CJNG, under the command of Oseguera Cervantes. Terror began to be felt in the air throughout Mexico when El Mencho turned violence into a means of conquest and power consolidation. Unlike other drug leaders like El Chapo Guzman, who resorted to extreme violence only in particular cases, CJNG made mass murders, torture of enemies, and displaying bodies in public a routine job. Among the most atrocious acts committed by the Jalisco cartel is the unforgivable murder of 2 children. First, a 10-year-old girl was killed by mistake, thinking she was the daughter of an adversary, and CJNG never apologized for it. Secondly, the bloody death of a man, allegedly a member of a rival cartel, and his young son, by blowing them up with dynamite while the hitmen filmed everything with their phones. El Mencho was showing that he had no limits, and that this bloody way of doing business and gaining territory was here to stay. This first confrontation was fundamental for the CJNG to advance in taking over the drug business in Tijuana, which at that time was under the control of the Sinaloa cartel. This area had been highly coveted by all drug trafficking organizations, as it meant a direct access corridor to cities in the western United States. The dominance of this route and passage to North America had been Mencho's obsession because it involved entering the drug trafficking business in that territory, which was estimated to be worth more than $1 billion. Oseguera Cervantes' excessive violence was motivated by conquering the territory and its operations for himself and his own, but he also knew he had to be careful not to get caught and dethroned. If anything was known about Mencho, it was that he was very intelligent, which is why he diversified the money he earned from drug trafficking by founding companies in the United States under the names of his closest relatives in order to evade the authorities. However, despite all their efforts, the US government began to embargo these companies and arrest all of Mencho's relatives because it all stemmed from drug trafficking. This represented a very hard financial blow to the drug lord and the CJNG. All these circumstances gave the Mexican state the courage to confront the Jalisco cartel more directly, a situation that enraged Mencho and made him react in the worst way by increasing violence even more to stay in power. The conflict between the CJNG and the Mexican armed forces of Jose Veros resulted in attacks throughout 2015. Most of these attacks were to keep authorities away from their businesses, so Mencho's men ambushed operations unrelated to the cartel, killing agents in cold blood. When the violence became unsustainable, the Mexican army planned an operation specifically against the CJNG to stop it once and for all. After careful planning, soldiers from the Mexican military forces arrived in Mencho's territory aboard 2 S-725 helicopters. However, the CJNG, armed with assault rifles and Russian RPG rocket launchers, was waiting for them in the perfect ambush. The Mexican soldiers tried to retreat when one of the S-725s was hit by a missile and went down in a ball of fire until it crashed. 8 soldiers died instantly, and only 1 survived. Although his body was completely charred, leaving him disfigured forever, chaos reigned in Jalisco and its surroundings, causing society to experience a true civil war. Everything seemed out of control, but in reality, it was a carefully planned strategy by El Mencho. The situation was so severe that it was impossible for the Mexican armed forces to locate Oseguera Cervantes. That's why the North American security forces, seeing the alert situation in the neighboring country, began to offer an impressive reward for any information that would help find the whereabouts of the most sought-after fugitive since the capture of Chapo Guzman in 2016. The Sinaloa cartel, eternal rival of the CJNG, was weakened, a situation that El Mencho took great advantage of with great cunning. The drug lord negotiated a kind of truce with his rivals, which basically consisted of overwhelming the Sinaloa organization under the wing of the CJNG, and thus taking control of the territory. Today, El Mencho's whereabouts are unknown, although his lieutenants maintain that he continues to command the CJNG from the shadows. Reaching the end of the video, we can say that what makes El Mencho a unique criminal is the fact that he has managed to evade countless capture attempts and remain, for so long, one of Mexico's most powerful drug lords. That's it for this video. If you liked it or know anything about El Mencho's whereabouts, don't forget to leave it in the comments.